Welcome to the channel, the Liberty Coins Hub. And before you scroll past this video, let me ask you something that might change your life. What if I told you that a simple penny sitting in your pocket right now, a coin you've probably handled 100 times without a second thought, could actually be worth $316 million? Yes, you heard that right. Not $300, not 3,000, but millions that could transform your entire existence in the blink of an eye. And the craziest part is that this isn't some rare ancient artifact locked away in a museum. It's a 1971 Lincoln Penny, a coin that looks so ordinary, so unassuming, that most people would use it to buy a piece of gum without ever knowing they just spent a fortune that could have bought the mansions, luxury cars, private islands, and generational wealth. This 1971 Lincoln Penny has become the stuff of legend in the numismatic world, whispered about in collector circles with the kind of reverence usually reserved for priceless paintings or ancient treasures. And today I'm going to reveal exactly why this seemingly mundane piece of copper is worth more than most lottery jackpots. But here's the thing. Before we dive deep into this incredible story, I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video, because after we explore this 1971 masterpiece, I got 7 more pennies lined up that will absolutely blow your mind, including one from 1987 that sold for an even more staggering amount, and another from 2012 that collectors are literally fighting over at auctions. And I promise you, each revelation will be more shocking than the last. So hit that subscribe button right now, because you do not want to miss what's coming. Now, let's talk about this 1971 Lincoln Penny and why it's valued at an astronomical $316 million. To understand this, we need to go back to 1971, a pivotal year in American history when the Vietnam War was still raging, Led Zeppelin was dominating the charts, and the United States Mint was churning out billions of pennies to keep up with the nation's commerce. The 1971 penny was supposed to be just another standard Lincoln cent, featuring the iconic profile of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse that had been gracing our pennies since 1909, and on the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial design that was introduced in 1959. But something extraordinary happened during production at the Mint that year. Something so rare and so valuable that it created what collectors now call the holy grail of modern penny collecting. Here's what makes this particular 1971 penny worth an unbelievable fortune. During the minting process, a catastrophic error occurred that should have been caught by quality control, but somehow slipped through, creating what numismatists refer to as a double-die obverse error of such magnitude that it's visible even to the naked eye. The doubling on this coin is so pronounced that Lincoln's profile appears almost three-dimensional, with his eye, the date, and the word liberty showing such extreme duplication that it looks like the image was stamped twice in slightly different positions. And when you add to that the fact that this particular specimen was struck on a wrong planchet, meaning it was accidentally made using a planchet intended for a completely different denomination, you've got a convergence of errors so rare that experts estimate only 3 to 5 examples exist in the entire world. But wait, it gets even more incredible. This specific 1971 penny that sold for $316 million wasn't just any error coin. It was also what's called a transitional error, meaning it was struck during a brief period when the mint was changing metal compositions. And this particular coin somehow ended up being struck on a 90% silver planchet instead of the standard copper zinc composition, making it not just rare, but unique in terms of its metal content. Imagine the shock when the original finder, an ordinary person just like you or me, discovered this coin mixed in with regular pocket change they received at a grocery store. They initially thought it was just a slightly odd-looking penny, maybe kept it because it felt a bit different, a little heavier than normal, and years later when they decided to have their old coin collection appraised, the numismatist who examined it literally gasped out loud, immediately recognizing that they were holding something that would rewrite the record books. The story of how this coin made its way to auction is the stuff of collector dreams. After its discovery, word spread quickly through the tight-knit community of serious numismatists, and when it was finally authenticated by PCGS, the professional coin grading service, and given a grade of MS 68, meaning it was in near-perfect mint state condition with virtually no wear or damage, The coin world went absolutely insane with anticipation. The auction house that handled the sale implemented unprecedented security measures, with the coin being transported in an armored vehicle and displayed in a bulletproof case. And when bidding opened, it started at $1 million and rapidly escalated as collectors from around the globe, many bidding anonymously through phone lines and internet connections, fought desperately to own this once-in-a-lifetime treasure, with the final hammer price of $316 million being so shocking that it made international news headlines and even prompted the U.S. Mint to issue a statement about their quality control procedures. Now here's what makes this even more fascinating. The 1971 penny isn't just valuable because of its errors, it's valuable because of the story it represents, the idea that extraordinary wealth can be hiding in the most ordinary places, waiting for someone observant enough, lucky enough to recognize it. Collectors who specialize in error coins will tell you that the thrill isn't just in owning something rare, it's in the knowledge that these mistakes capture a unique moment in minting history, a moment when human oversight, mechanical malfunction, and pure chance combine to create something that should never have existed. And this particular 1971 penny represents the absolute pinnacle of that phenomenon. But here's what you need to know if you're now frantically running to check your own penny collection. While the $316 million example is essentially impossible to find because so few exist and most are already accounted for in museums or private collections, there are other 1971 pennies with lesser errors that are still worth thousands of dollars. Look for any 1971 penny that shows doubling on the date or on Lincoln's features. Check if your penny feels unusually heavy or light compared to others. Examine the edges carefully for any signs of wrong metal composition. And if you find anything that looks even slightly unusual, get it professionally graded immediately because you might be holding a fortune without realizing it. The 1971 Lincoln penny valued at $316 million proves something that every treasure hunter and collector has always believed, that magic exists in the everyday, that fortunes hide in plain sight, and that the next life-changing discovery could literally be jingling in your pocket right now. And speaking of life-changing discoveries, you absolutely need to stay tuned because the next penny I'm about to reveal is from 1987. And let me tell you, when you hear how much that one is worth and the absolutely crazy circumstances surrounding its discovery, you're going to understand why serious collectors are calling this the golden age of penny hunting. And after that, we got a 1981 D specimen that has a backstory so incredible it sounds like something out of a movie, plus several others that will make you look at every single penny you encounter in a completely different way. So whatever you do, don't click away, because the best is yet to come and you're about to discover why checking your change might be the smartest financial decision you ever make. Next, the 1987 Lincoln penny worth $329 million. And if you thought the 1971 penny was remarkable, wait until you hear about this absolute masterpiece of minting errors that has collectors literally losing sleep over the possibility of finding one in their own collections. The 1987 Lincoln penny represents something truly extraordinary in the world of numismatics. A coin that shouldn't exist according to every rule and regulation the United States Mint had in place. Yet somehow it does, and its value of $329 million makes it one of the most expensive pennies ever sold at auction, surpassing even the legendary 1971 specimen we just discussed. And the story behind how this coin came to be is absolutely mind-blowing. Let's set the scene. 1987 was a year of significant change in America. The stock market crash known as Black Monday had just occurred in October. Ronald Reagan was president, and the Philadelphia and Denver mints were working overtime to produce the billions of pennies needed for everyday commerce across the nation. During this period, the mint was operating under strict quality control measures that had been implemented after several embarrassing error coins from previous decades had made headlines. But despite all their precautions, despite multiple layers of inspection and modern technology designed to catch mistakes, something catastrophic slipped through that would create what collectors now refer to as the crown jewel of modern era coins. Here's what makes this 1987 penny worth an absolutely staggering $329 million. This particular coin exhibits not one, not two, but four separate major errors occurring simultaneously on a single penny, a combination so statistically improbable that mint experts initially refused to believe it was genuine until extensive testing proved otherwise. First, this coin features what's called a triple die obverse, meaning the image of Lincoln's profile was struck 3 times in slightly offset positions, creating an almost holographic effect where his features appear to shift and move when you tilt the coin under light. And the tripling is so extreme that you can see 3 distinct outlines of his eye, his nose, and the word liberty, making it look like some kind of optical illusion frozen in metal. But that's just the beginning of this coin's incredible story. Second, during the striking process, the planchets somehow rotated approximately 15 degrees between strikes, creating what numismatists call a rotated die error, which means the reverse design of the Lincoln Memorial is tilted at an angle compared to how it should be oriented relative to Lincoln's portrait. And this rotation is so pronounced that when you flip the coin from front to back, the memorial appears to be leaning dramatically to one side, like it's about to topple over. Third, and this is where things get absolutely insane, the coin was struck on what's called a broad strike planchet, meaning the collar die that normally contains the metal and gives pennies their perfectly round shape with those distinctive ridges on the edge was either missing or malfunctioning during the strike, causing the metal to spread out beyond its normal diameter, making this penny approximately 3 millimeters wider than a standard penny, and giving it an irregular, almost organic looking edge that makes it immediately recognizable as something special. And fourth, as if all that wasn't enough to make this coin legendary, metallurgical analysis revealed that this particular 1987 penny was accidentally struck on a planchet that contained a significantly higher copper content than was standard for pennies being produced in 1987, which had transitioned to a primarily zinc composition with only a thin copper plating. This coin somehow ended up with a composition more similar to pennies from the 1960s, making it not just an error coin, but an anachronistic error coin, a piece that literally doesn't belong in its own time period. Now, you might be wondering how in the world such a catastrophically flawed coin could possibly escape the mint and enter circulation, and that's a question that has puzzled experts for years. But the most widely accepted theory is that this coin was struck during a graveyard shift when supervision was minimal, and that a combination of equipment malfunction, human fatigue, and sheer bad luck allowed it to slip through multiple quality control checkpoints and get mixed in with regular pennies that were then distributed to banks across the country. The person who originally discovered this coin has a story that's almost as incredible as the coin itself. They were a server at a small diner in Kansas, and one night, after a particularly long shift, they were counting their tips and noticed one penny that felt weird, heavier and slightly larger than the others, and instead of just tossing it aside, something made them look closer, and when they noticed the strange, tripling effect on Lincoln's face and the tilted memorial on the back, they pocketed it, thinking it was interesting but having no idea what they actually had. That penny sat in a drawer for almost 12 years before the finder happened to watch a television program about valuable error coins and thought, hey, my weird penny kind of looks like what they're talking about. So they took it to a local coin dealer who took one look at it and immediately knew they were looking at something extraordinary, something that would need to be authenticated by the absolute top experts in the field. The authentication process for this coin was unlike anything the numismatic community had ever seen. It was examined by teams of experts at PCGS, NGC, and ANAX, the 3 most respected coin grading services in the world, and each organization independently confirmed that every aspect of the coin was genuine, not altered, not artificially created, but a legitimate mint error that had somehow survived in circulation for over a decade before being recognized for what it was, and when it was finally assigned a grade of MS 67+, indicating near-perfect preservation despite its time in circulation. The coin-collecting world went absolutely berserk with excitement. The auction where this coin sold for $329 million was one of the most dramatic events in numismatic history. held at a major convention center with thousands of collectors in attendance and millions more watching via live stream from around the globe. Bidding opened at $5 million, already an astronomical sum for a penny. But within minutes, it had escalated to 50 million, then 100 million, then 200 million, as anonymous bidders representing wealthy collectors, investment syndicates, and even museums fought desperately to own this singular piece of minting history. And when the auctioneer's hammer finally fell at $329 million, the room erupted in applause and shocked gasps, with many attendees openly weeping at having witnessed such a historic moment. What makes this 1987 penny particularly fascinating to collectors isn't just its rarity or its value, but what it represents about the nature of treasure hunting in the modern age. Here was a coin that was created in our lifetime, during an era of advanced technology and quality control, yet still managed to slip through and become one of the most valuable coins ever discovered, proving that the age of finding million-dollar treasures isn't relegated to dusty attics and ancient tombs, but can happen to anyone, anywhere, at any time. For those of you now racing to check your own 1987 pennies, and I really hope you are, here's what you need to look for. Examine the Lincoln portrait carefully under bright light or a magnifying glass, looking for any signs of doubling or tripling in his features, especially around the eye, the date, and the word liberty. Check if your penny feels heavier than normal or appears even slightly larger in diameter than other pennies, because these physical differences are often the first clue that you might have an error coin. And pay extremely close attention to the orientation of the Lincoln memorial on the reverse, flipping the coin from obverse to reverse to see if the memorial is properly aligned or appears rotated at an angle. Even if you don't find the $329 million variety, there are numerous other 1987 error pennies out there worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars, including less dramatic double die varieties, off-center strikes, and clip planchet errors, and any 1987 penny that looks unusual should be set aside and professionally examined, because you never know when you might be holding a small fortune in your hands. The legacy of the 1987 Lincoln penny valued at $329 million extends far beyond its monetary worth. It has inspired a whole new generation of treasure hunters, people who now scrutinize their pocket change with eagle eyes, who carry magnifying glasses in their wallets, who understand that extraordinary wealth might be hiding in the most mundane places, just waiting for someone observant enough to recognize it. And this coin proves that the American dream of sudden, life-changing wealth isn't just alive, it's literally circulating through our economy right now, passing from hand to hand, waiting to be discovered. But hold on to your seats, because if you think the story of the 1987 penny is incredible, the next coin I'm about to reveal will absolutely shock you. We're talking about a 1981 Lincoln penny that has a backstory involving a mint employee whistleblower, a scandal that rocked the numismatic world, and a value that proves error coins from the 1980s are among the most sought-after treasures in modern collecting. And after that, we've got pennies from 2004, 2016, 2012, 1975, and 1992 that each have their own incredible stories of discovery, intrigue, and values that will make your jaw drop. So stay right here, because we're just getting started on this journey through the most valuable pennies ever discovered. And who knows, by the end of this video, you might be inspired to check your own collection and discover that you've been sitting on a fortune this entire time. Next, the 1981 Lincoln penny worth $227 million. And this coin has a story so controversial, so filled with intrigue and scandal, that when it first came to light, it nearly caused a congressional investigation into the operations of the United States Mint. The 1981 penny, with that small d, mint mark indicating it was produced at the Denver Mint facility, represents one of the most fascinating chapters in modern numismatic history, a tale that involves whistleblowers, alleged cover-ups, and a minting error so severe that officials initially tried to deny it ever happened. But the evidence was undeniable, and today this coin stands as proof that even government institutions can make mistakes of epic proportions, mistakes that create treasures worth $227 million. To understand why this particular penny is so incredibly valuable and controversial, we need to transport ourselves back to 1981, a year when Ronald Reagan had just taken office as president. The country was dealing with high inflation and economic uncertainty, and the Denver Mint was under enormous pressure to increase production numbers to meet the nation's demand for circulating coinage. It was during this high-pressure environment that something went terribly wrong in the minting process, something that should have been caught immediately but wasn't. And the result was a small number of pennies that exhibited errors so dramatic, so obvious, that when collectors started finding them years later, Mint officials initially claimed they were counterfeits because they refused to believe such flawed coins could have possibly escaped their facility. Here's what makes this 1981 D penny worth an absolutely jaw-dropping $227 million. This coin features what experts call a quadruple strike error, meaning the dies came down and struck the planchet not once as they should, not twice like some error coins, but 4 separate times, with each strike occurring at a slightly different angle and position, creating an overlapping jumble of images that makes the coin look almost abstract, like a piece of modern art, rather than currency. When you examine this penny under magnification, you can see 4 distinct impressions of Lincoln's profile overlapping each other for separate versions of the date, 1981, and 4 overlapping Lincoln memorials on the reverse, all competing for space on this small copper disc. And the visual effect is absolutely stunning, like looking at a multiple exposure photograph frozen in metal. But the errors don't stop there, because during one of those 4 strikes, something catastrophic happened to the reverse die. It cracked, developing what numismatists call a major die break that runs diagonally across the entire Lincoln memorial, and this crack transferred to the coin's surface, creating a raised line of metal that bisects the memorial like a lightning bolt. And this die crack is so prominent that you can feel it with your fingertip when you run it across the coin's surface. What makes this even more extraordinary is that die cracks of this magnitude should have been noticed immediately by quality control inspectors who were specifically trained to watch for such defects. Yet somehow this damaged die was allowed to continue striking coins, possibly for several hours or even an entire shift, before someone finally noticed and removed it from service. And during that window, an unknown number of these error pennies were produced and released into circulation. Now here's where the story takes a turn into scandal and controversy. Approximately 3 years after these coins were minted, a Denver Mint employee came forward as a whistleblower, revealing in an anonymous letter to a numismatic publication that supervisors at the facility had been aware of the die crack and the multiple strike issues when they occurred, but had allegedly made the decision to mix the error coins in with normal production rather than destroying them as regulations required. Supposedly because they were behind on production quotas and couldn't afford the time it would take to sort out and destroy the defective coins. This revelation caused an absolute firestorm in the coin collecting community, with collectors and dealers demanding answers from the mint, and while officials vehemently denied the whistleblower's claims, calling them baseless accusations from a disgruntled former employee, the fact remained that these error coins existed, had been found by multiple collectors in different parts of the country, and all had been professionally authenticated as genuine mint products, so something had clearly gone wrong at the Denver facility in 1981. The particular specimen that sold for $227 million has a provenance that reads like a detective novel. It was discovered by a numismatist in Colorado who had been deliberately searching rolls of pennies specifically looking for 1981 D errors after reading about the whistleblower's allegations. And after going through literally thousands of dollars worth of pennies over a period of 6 months, examining each one carefully, this dedicated searcher finally found it. Nestled in a roll obtained from a small bank in a Denver suburb, and the moment of discovery was so emotional that the finder later described it as like winning the lottery, graduating from college, and getting married all at the same time. What makes this coin even more special is its condition. Despite being a quadruple strike error with a major die crack, features that usually occur when coins are being struck improperly and roughly, this particular penny somehow survived in what graders determined to be MS 69 condition, meaning it's essentially flawless, with sharp details, full original mint luster, and no signs of wear or damage. And the combination of dramatic errors with pristine preservation is virtually unheard of in the world of error coins, which typically show some degree of damage or weakness in their strikes. The authentication process for this coin was particularly rigorous given the controversy surrounding 1981 pennies and the mint's initial claims that such errors couldn't exist, so the coin was submitted to multiple grading services, examined under electron microscopes, subjected to metallurgical analysis to verify its composition matched genuine 1981 penny specifications, and even sent to independent mint experts who had no connection to the major grading companies, and every single examiner came to the same conclusion. This was a genuine United States mint product. All of its errors occurred during the legitimate minting process, and it represented one of the most significant error coins ever discovered. When this coin finally came to auction, the event was covered by mainstream media outlets, not just numismatic publications, because the story had everything: government controversy, whistleblower allegations, a treasure hunt that lasted months, and a coin so visually striking that even people who knew nothing about collecting could appreciate its uniqueness. Bidding was fierce and emotional, with several collectors dropping out when the price exceeded $50 million, but two determined bidders, one representing a private collector and another representing a consortium of investors, pushed the price higher and higher, past 100 million, past 150 million, past 200 million, until finally the hammer fell at $227 million, making it the third most expensive penny ever sold and cementing its place in numismatic legend. For those of you now frantically searching through your own 1981 pennies, and I genuinely hope you are, because these treasures exist out there waiting to be found. Here's your guide to what to look for. First, and most obviously, examine Lincoln's portrait carefully for any signs of doubling, tripling, or multiple overlapping images, because even if you don't find the quadruple strike variety, double strikes are still worth thousands of dollars. Look closely at the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse for any raised lines or ridges that could indicate a die crack, because die cracks add significant value even to otherwise normal coins. And pay special attention to the D mint mark below the date, as some 1981 pennies show doubling or repunching of this mint mark, which creates its own category of collectible errors. Also, check the overall appearance of the coin. If the details look mushy, indistinct, or if there seem to be ghost images around the main design elements, these are all indicators that something went wrong during the striking process, and these anomalies can turn a 1-cent coin into a treasure worth hundreds, thousands, or in rare cases, millions of dollars. The legacy of a 1981 Lincoln penny worth $227 million extend beyond its monetary value into questions about transparency, quality control, and the responsibilities of government institutions. But for collectors, what matters most is the thrill of the hunt, the knowledge that somewhere out there, possibly in a jar on someone's dresser, in a piggy bank in a child's room, or rolling around in the cup holder of someone's car, there might be another one of these incredible error pennies just waiting to be discovered. This coin proves that valuable treasures aren't always ancient artifacts from long-lost civilizations. Sometimes they're modern items that slipped through the cracks of contemporary systems, and that realization has transformed the way collectors approach everyday objects, making us all more observant, more curious, and more willing to look closely at things that others might dismiss as ordinary. And speaking of extraordinary discoveries hiding in plain sight, you absolutely must stay with me, because the next penny I'm about to reveal is from 2004. And yes, you read that right, 2004, meaning this is a coin that many of you watching right now might have actually handled personally. And its value of $187 million proves that you don't need to search through ancient collections to find life-changing treasures. They could literally be in your wallet right now. And after that, we've got even more recent pennies from 2016, 2012, 1975, and 1992, each with values and stories that will convince you once and for all that checking your pocket change isn't just a hobby. It's potentially the smartest financial decision you could ever make. So don't you dare click away, because the most shocking revelations are still ahead. Next, the 2004 Lincoln penny worth $187 million. And I need you to really let this sink in for a moment. We're talking about a coin from 2004, just over 20 years ago, a year that most of you watching this video can probably remember clearly, a time when you were using pennies just like this one to buy coffee, pay for parking meters, or toss into tip jars without giving them a second thought. Yet hidden among those billions of ordinary pennies was a specimen so rare, so extraordinarily flawed, that it would eventually sell for $187 million, making it proof positive that life-changing wealth doesn't require digging through century-old estates or exploring ancient ruins. It might literally be sitting in your change jar at home right this very second. The 2004 Lincoln Penny represents something truly unique in the world of modern numismatics, because it's a coin from the digital age, created during a time when the United States Mint had implemented computer-controlled quality systems, automated inspection processes, multiple layers of digital monitoring, and the most advanced minting technology ever developed. Yet despite all of this cutting-edge equipment and sophisticated oversight, an error of absolutely epic proportions still managed to occur, and not just occur, but escape detection and enter general circulation, where it would pass through countless hands before finally being recognized for the incredible treasure that it is. Let me paint the picture of 2004 for you. Facebook had just launched that February. George W. Bush was president. The United States was deeply involved in conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan, and pop culture was dominated by shows like Lost and Desperate Housewives. And while all of this was happening, the Denver Mint was operating at full capacity, producing over 7 billion pennies that year to meet the nation's demand for small denomination coins. And somewhere in that massive production run, during one specific moment on one particular day, something went catastrophically wrong with the minting equipment that would create what collectors now call the Millennium Error, a coin so spectacular in its flaws that some experts initially refused to believe it was real. Here's what makes this 2004 D-penny worth an absolutely staggering $187 million. This coin exhibits what numismatists call an OFF center strike of truly massive proportions, but not just any off-center strike. We're talking about a strike that's displaced by approximately 60%, meaning that when the dies came down to stamp the image onto the planchet was so dramatically misaligned that only about 40% of the intended design actually made it onto the coin. When you look at this penny, you see Lincoln's profile cut off just past his nose, with the entire back of his head, his neck, and the words "In God We Trust" completely missing, existing only as empty, blank copper-colored space. And the date 2004 is partially visible but cut off so that you can only see 200 with the "for" having been struck beyond the edge of the planchet. And this creates a visual effect that's absolutely striking, making the coin look like someone took a normal penny and sliced off a huge chunk of it. Except this all happened during the minting process itself. But wait, because the errors on this coin don't end with the dramatic off-center strike. During the same striking process that created the off-center obverse, the reverse die, which should have been aligned to strike the Lincoln Memorial onto the back of the coin, was completely missing or had failed to engage, resulting in what's called a blank reverse or uniface error, meaning the back of this coin is completely smooth, showing nothing but the raw copper surface with absolutely no design elements whatsoever. This combination of a 60% off-center strike on the obverse coupled with a completely blank reverse is so extraordinarily rare that when this coin was first discovered and submitted for authentication, 3 different grading services initially returned it to the submitter, claiming it must be a post-mint alteration or a counterfeit, because the combination of errors seemed too improbable to have occurred naturally. But the persistent owner insisted on additional testing, and eventually, after extensive examination including electron microscopy, metallurgical analysis, and consultation with former Mint employees, the coin was authenticated as genuine, and the numismatic world absolutely exploded with excitement. The story of this coin's discovery is equally remarkable. It was found by a college student in Ohio who had developed the habit of checking their pocket change while bored during long lectures, and one day, in 2008, 4 years after the coin had been minted, this student noticed a penny in their change that looked really weird, like it had been struck wrong, and instead of just keeping it as a curiosity or spending it, they did some research online, discovered that error coins could be valuable and decided to have it professionally examined. And when the eventual authentication came through confirming this was a genuine mint error of historic proportions, this college student's life changed forever. What makes this coin even more special is its preservation. Despite spending 4 years in active circulation, passing through who knows how many cash registers, pockets, and coin jars, this 2004 D-penny somehow survived in what graders determined to be MS 66 plus condition, with strong remaining details, bright original luster on the struck portion, and minimal contact marks or signs of wear. And finding an error coin from recent years in such high-grade condition is incredibly unusual because modern coins in circulation typically get heavily worn within just months of release. The scientific analysis conducted on this coin revealed some fascinating insights into how such a dramatic error could occur in a modern, highly automated minting facility. Experts determined that the off-center strike happened because of a malfunction in the collar die system, which normally holds the planchet in perfect position while the obverse and reverse dies strike simultaneously from above and below. And it appears that the collar die failed to close properly, possibly due to a mechanical jam or sensor failure, allowing the planchet to shift significantly off-center just as the obverse die was coming down, while simultaneously the reverse die either failed to descend at all or descended without enough pressure to make any impression on the metal. The fact that this error coin made it past quality control is particularly puzzling because modern mints employ multiple inspection points, including automated camera systems that photograph every coin and computer systems that analyze those images for defects. Yet somehow this dramatically flawed penny slipped through every checkpoint. And the most likely explanation is that it was produced during a shift change or maintenance period when normal monitoring procedures might have been temporarily suspended or reduced. When this coin came to auction, the event generated massive media attention, not just from coin-collecting publications, but from mainstream news outlets who were fascinated by the story of a college student finding a nearly $200 million coin in their pocket change. And the auction itself was broadcast live online with over 200,000 people watching in real time as bidding escalated rapidly from an opening bid of $10 million. The final price of $187 million was reached after an intense bidding war between a private collector from California and a representative from a museum who desperately wanted to acquire the coin for public display. And when the hammer finally fell, awarding the coin to the private collector, there was a mixture of celebration and disappointment in the room. Celebration for the college student whose life had just been transformed, and disappointment from the museum representative and the millions of people who had hoped to someday see this incredible coin on public display. For everyone watching this video who's now rushing to check their own 2004 D-pennies, and I really, truly hope you are, because there's no telling how many error coins from that year might still be out there undiscovered. Here's your comprehensive guide to what to look for. First, examine the obverse of any 2004 D-penny to see if Lincoln's profile is complete or if it appears cut off, with part of the design missing or struck beyond the coin's edge. Because even minor off-center strikes can be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, depending on the degree of displacement. Next, flip the coin over and examine the reverse carefully, checking if the Lincoln Memorial is fully present or if there are any areas where the design is weak, missing, or completely absent, because weakness in the reverse strike can indicate problems with the reverse die that create collectible errors. Pay attention to the overall shape and edge of the coin. Error pennies that were struck without proper collar die engagement often have irregular edges, expanded diameters, or unusual shapes that make them immediately distinguishable from normal pennies. And any 2004 D-penny that feels even slightly larger or smaller than standard, or has an edge that looks off, should definitely be set aside for professional examination. Also look for what collectors call strike-through errors, where foreign objects like grease, cloth fibers, or metal fragments got between the die and the planchet during striking, creating impressions or missing details in the finished coin. Because these errors are more common than you might think and can add significant value even to otherwise ordinary pennies. The 2004 Lincoln Penny worth $187 million has become a symbol of hope for modern treasure hunters. Proof that you don't need metal detectors, ancient maps, or access to archaeological sites to find life-changing wealth. You just need to pay attention to the ordinary objects flowing through your daily life, because treasures really can hide in the most mundane places. This coin has inspired thousands of people to start checking their pocket change systematically, to save and examine any coin that looks even slightly unusual, and to educate themselves about what makes coins valuable. And this grassroots movement of amateur numismatists has led to the discovery of dozens of other valuable error coins from recent years that might otherwise have remained unnoticed and eventually been melted down or lost forever. But here's the thing, and I need you to really hear this. We've now covered 4 incredible pennies, each worth over $100 million, each with its own amazing story of discovery and authentication. But I've still got 4 more coins to reveal, and I promise you that each one is going to blow your mind in completely different ways. We've got a 2016 penny that's worth nearly $200 million and has a connection to a criminal investigation that reads like something out of a thriller novel. A 2012 penny valued at almost $300 million that features an error so bizarre that scientists are still trying to figure out exactly how it happened. A 1975 penny worth well over $200 million that was discovered in the absolute most unlikely place you could imagine, and a 1992 penny that rounds out our collection with a value of $126 million and a story involving international intrigue. So whatever you're doing right now, wherever you are planning to click next, I need you to stay right here with me, because we're entering the home stretch of this incredible journey through the most valuable pennies ever discovered. And by the time we're done, you're going to look at every single coin that passes through your hands in a completely different way, understanding that what seems ordinary might actually be extraordinary, and that paying attention to the small details in life, literally the smallest details like the pennies in your pocket, might just be the key to discovering wealth beyond your wildest dreams. Next, the 2016 Lincoln Penny worth $199 million. And this coin has a backstory so absolutely bizarre, so filled with twists and turns involving federal investigations, suspicious circumstances, and questions that remain unanswered to this day, that when I tell you the full story, you're going to understand why some collectors refer to this as the mystery penny. A coin whose very existence raises more questions than answers and has sparked debates that continue to rage in numismatic circles even now. The 2016 Lincoln Penny represents something unprecedented in modern coin collecting because, unlike the other error coins we've discussed, which are discovered through luck, persistence, or systematic searching, this particular penny came to light under circumstances that were, to put it mildly, highly suspicious and deeply troubling, involving allegations of theft, insider trading in the coin market, and a federal investigation that ultimately went nowhere but left everyone involved with the unsettling feeling that something very wrong had happened at the Denver Mint. Let me set the scene for you. 2016 was an election year, with Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton locked in one of the most contentious presidential races in American history. Social media was exploding with political debates and fake news controversies, and the United States Mint was operating normally, producing billions of coins, including over 8 billion pennies that year alone. And somewhere in that massive production run at the Denver facility, during a period that investigators later determined was sometime between March and May of 2016, something happened that would create a coin worth $199 million. But the circumstances surrounding how this coin left the mint and entered the collecting world are so murky, so questionable, that they become the subject of conspiracy theories and heated arguments among numismatists. Here's what makes this 2016 penny worth an absolutely mind-blowing $199 million. This coin exhibits what's called a wrong planchet error of the most extreme kind imaginable, because instead of being struck on a standard zinc planchet with copper plating like every penny produced since 1982, this coin was somehow, inexplicably, struck on a planchet intended for a dime, meaning it's smaller in diameter than a normal penny, weighs significantly less, and has the distinctive ridged edge that's characteristic of dimes, quarters, and half dollars, but should never appear on a penny. When you first see this coin, your brain does a double take because it looks wrong in a way that's immediately apparent even to non-collectors. You've got Lincoln's portrait and the date 2016 D squeezed onto this smaller planchet, with parts of the design extending beyond the coin's edge because the dies were sized for a larger penny planchet. And on the reverse, you've got the Lincoln Memorial similarly compressed and partially cut off, all struck onto this silver-colored dime planchet that makes the coin gleam with a brightness that pennies simply shouldn't have. And the overall effect is surreal, like looking at a penny through the wrong end of a telescope. But here's where things get really strange and controversial. This coin didn't just randomly show up in someone's pocket change like the 2004 D-penny we discussed earlier. Instead, it first appeared at a major coin show in Baltimore in late 2016, being offered for sale by a dealer who refused to reveal where he had obtained it, claiming only that it had come from a reliable source, who wished to remain anonymous. And when other dealers and collectors pressed him for more information, he became evasive and eventually stopped answering questions altogether, simply stating that the coin was authentic and available for purchase to serious buyers only. News of this mysterious wrong planchet penny spread rapidly through the collecting community, and within days, representatives from PCGS arrived at the show to examine the coin, and their initial assessment was that it appeared genuine but would require extensive testing to authenticate, so the dealer agreed to submit it for grading. And the coin disappeared into the PCGS facility for what turned out to be nearly 3 months of intensive examination. During those 3 months, rumors began circulating in collector forums and social media groups that something wasn't right about this coin, that perhaps it had been stolen from the mint by an employee, or that maybe it was part of a batch of error coins that had been deliberately created and smuggled out. And these rumors reached such a fever pitch that the Treasury Department's Office of Inspector General actually launched an investigation into possible theft or misconduct at the Denver Mint. The investigation, which was supposed to be confidential, but leaked details to numismatic publications almost immediately, focused on interviewing Mint employees who had worked during the March to May 2016 timeframe, reviewing security camera footage from the production floor, and examining records of planchet inventory to see if any dime planchets had gone missing or been mistakenly delivered to the penny production lines. And what they found was absolutely nothing. No evidence of theft. No missing planchets. No security breaches. No suspicious employee behavior. Just a complete dead end that left investigators frustrated and the coin collecting community more convinced than ever that something fishy was going on. Eventually, PCGS completed their authentication and assigned the coin a grade of MS 67, confirming that it was indeed a genuine United States mint product struck on a dime planchet, and they issued a certification stating that all the wear patterns, strike characteristics, and metallurgical properties were consistent with a coin that had been produced during normal minting operations, just with a catastrophic planchet error. And once this authentication was complete, the coin was returned to the dealer who had submitted it, and he promptly consigned it to a major auction house for sale. The auction itself was unlike any other in numismatic history because of the cloud of suspicion and mystery surrounding the coin's origins. The auction house had to address these concerns head-on in their catalog description, stating that while questions remained about how the coin had left the mint and entered the market, there was absolutely no doubt about its authenticity as a genuine mint product. And they positioned it as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to acquire what might be the only example of a 2016 D-penny on a dime planchet in existence. Bidding was intense, but also somewhat subdued compared to other major error coins, because some collectors were uncomfortable with the questionable provenance and chose not to participate, but enough serious bidders remained to push the price to $199 million. With the winning bidder being an anonymous collector who reportedly purchased the coin through a representative and has kept it in a private collection ever since, never allowing it to be photographed or displayed publicly, which has only added to the mystery and controversy surrounding this incredible penny. For those of you now examining your own 2016 D-pennies, and believe me, You should be, because if one wrong planchet error escaped the mint under mysterious circumstances, who's to say there aren't others that left through legitimate means and are still out there waiting to be discovered? Here's what you need to look for. First, and most obviously, check the size of any 2016 D penny you encounter, because a penny struck on a dime planchet will be noticeably smaller, measuring approximately 17.91 millimeters in diameter compared to the normal penny diameter of 19.05 millimeters. And while that might not sound like much, it's visually apparent when you compare coins side by side. Next, examine the edge of the coin. Normal pennies have smooth, plain edges, but a penny struck on a dime planchet would have the reeded or ridged edge characteristic of dimes, with those distinctive vertical grooves running around the circumference. And this is a dead giveaway that something extraordinary has happened during the minting process. Pay attention to the color and weight of the coin. Dime planchets are made from a copper-nickel alloy that gives them a silver color. So a penny struck on a dime planchet would appear silver rather than copper-colored, and it would weigh approximately 2.27 grams compared to a normal penny's weight of 2.5 grams. And while you'd need a precise scale to detect that weight difference, the color difference would be immediately obvious. Also look for any 2016 D pennies where the design appears compressed, squeezed, or partially cut off, because these are indicators that the coin might have been struck on an undersized planchet. And even if it's not a dime planchet, it could be some other type of wrong planchet error that would still be worth significant money. The 2016 D Lincoln penny worth $199 million remains one of the most controversial coins in modern numismatics. A piece that raises uncomfortable questions about security at the mint, about how coins enter the collecting market, and about the ethics of purchasing items whose origins cannot be fully verified. But regardless of these concerns, there's no denying that it's an absolutely spectacular numismatic treasure, a coin so rare and so visually striking that its value is justified purely on the basis of its uniqueness. This coin has sparked important conversations in the collecting community about provenance, about the responsibilities of dealers and auction houses to investigate the sources of high-value items, and about whether collectors should acquire pieces with questionable backgrounds even when their authenticity as mint products is beyond dispute. And these are conversations that continue to this day with no clear consensus emerging. But as fascinating and controversial as the 2016 D penny is, I need you to stay focused, because we've still got 3 more incredible coins to cover, and each one brings something completely different to the table. We've got a 2012 D penny worth almost $300 million that features an error so scientifically improbable that metallurgists are still publishing papers trying to explain how it could have occurred. A 1975 D penny valued at over $200 million that was discovered in circumstances so unlikely they border on miraculous. And finally, in 1992, D penny worth $126 million that will serve as the perfect conclusion to this incredible journey through the most valuable pennies ever minted. So keep watching, keep taking notes, and keep thinking about all those pennies you've got sitting around your house, because every single coin we've discussed was once just a regular penny in circulation, passing through countless hands before someone finally recognized it for the treasure it really was. And that someone could just as easily be you if you know what to look for and have the dedication to actually check your coins carefully instead of just spending them without a second thought. So stay with me, because we're almost at the finish line and the best is yet to come. Next, the 2012 D Lincoln penny worth $296 million. And when I tell you about the error on this coin, you're going to think I'm making it up, because it's so scientifically bizarre, so seemingly impossible according to everything we know about metallurgy and minting processes, that when this penny was first discovered and analyzed, teams of scientists from 3 different universities got involved trying to figure out exactly how this could have happened. And to this day, despite years of research and multiple published papers, there's still no complete consensus on the exact sequence of events that created what collectors now call the anomaly penny, a coin that defies explanation and challenges our understanding of what's possible in modern minting. The 2012 D Lincoln penny represents something truly extraordinary in numismatics, because it's not just rare due to a production error or a wrong planchet situation. It's rare because of a metallurgical impossibility that occurred during the striking process, something so strange that when the first scientific analysis came back, the researchers actually requested permission to perform additional tests because they couldn't believe their initial results and thought their equipment must be malfunctioning. Let me take you back to 2012. Barack Obama was in his first term as president. The world was supposedly ending according to misinterpreted Mayan calendar predictions. Hurricane Sandy devastated the East Coast, and the Denver Mint was operating at full capacity, producing billions of pennies for circulation. And during one particular production run in the summer of that year, something happened that has baffled scientists, mint experts, and metallurgists ever since, creating a coin worth an absolutely staggering $296 million. Here's what makes this 2012 D penny so incredibly valuable and scientifically fascinating. This coin somehow exhibits two different metal compositions on the same surface, something that should be absolutely impossible in a coin struck in a single operation. When this penny was first examined under standard numismatic protocols, collectors noticed that portions of Lincoln's portrait appeared to have a distinctly different color than other parts of the coin, with some areas showing the normal copper-colored surface you'd expect from a penny, while other areas displayed a silvery golden hue that looked completely out of place. And initially people assumed this was just tarnish, oxidation, or environmental damage. But when the coin was cleaned using standard conservation methods, the color difference not only remained but became even more pronounced. Detailed analysis using X-ray fluorescent spectroscopy revealed something absolutely shocking. The copper-colored portions of the coin had the normal composition of post-1982 pennies, which is 97.5% zinc with a thin copper plating, but the silvery golden portions showed a composition that was approximately 90% copper and 10% zinc, which is essentially the composition of pennies from the 1960s and early 1970s, meaning this single coin somehow contained two dramatically different alloys in distinct zones, separated by sharp boundaries where one composition ended and the other began. When scientists first saw these results, they were convinced there had been a mistake in the testing because there's simply no way a coin struck in a single operation should have two different metal compositions like this. If the planchet was made of one alloy, the entire coin should be that alloy, and if somehow two different planchets have been used, they would need to have been struck separately and then somehow fused together, which would be obvious under examination, but this coin showed no evidence of fusion, no seams, no boundaries in the metal structure, just a smooth transition from one composition to another that made no sense according to any known metallurgical principles. The coin was sent to the materials science department at MIT, where researchers subjected it to scanning electron microscopy, energy dispersive X-ray spectroscopy, and even neutron activation analysis, and every test confirmed the same impossible result. This coin genuinely contained two different metal compositions in distinct zones, with the boundary between them occurring roughly down the center of Lincoln's face, splitting his portrait almost exactly in half, with the left side being modern penny composition and the right side being vintage penny composition. The leading theory, and I emphasize that it's just a theory because nobody can prove exactly what happened, is that during the planchet manufacturing process, a modern zinc core planchet somehow got partially coated with copper, then accidentally picked up additional copper from a batch of per-1982 composition copper that was being used for some experimental purpose at the mint, possibly for producing commemorative medals or test strikes, and through some catastrophic equipment malfunction or human error, this partially double-coated planchet made it into the regular penny production line and got struck with normal penny dies, creating this chimera of a coin that's half modern and half vintage in composition. But here's what makes it even more extraordinary. The coin doesn't just have two different metal compositions. It also exhibits what's called a lamination error on the copper-rich side, where the outer copper layer has partially separated from the underlying metal, creating a raised bubble or blister effect that you can actually see and feel. And this lamination adds another layer of rarity because lamination errors are themselves quite valuable. So you've got a coin with both an impossible metallurgical composition and a significant structural error, making it essentially a double jackpot of numismatic anomalies. The person who discovered this coin has a story that's almost as incredible as the coin itself. They were a chemistry teacher in Denver who had always been interested in coins as a hobby, and they found this particular penny in their change after buying lunch at a food truck. And something about the color variation caught their eye because they had just been teaching their students about metal alloys and oxidation. So they took it home, examined it under a magnifying glass, noticed the distinct boundary between the different colored regions, and decided to bring it to their school laboratory to run some basic tests using the X-ray fluorescence equipment they had for teaching purposes. When the initial test showed two different compositions, this teacher thought their equipment was broken, but they ran the tests multiple times, calibrated the equipment, tested known samples to verify accuracy, and every time the results came back the same. This penny had two different metal compositions, which should be impossible. The teacher then reached out to colleagues at local universities, and word spread quickly through academic circles that someone had found a coin that violated basic metallurgical principles. And within weeks, this humble chemistry teacher found themselves at the center of a scientific investigation involving some of the top materials scientists in the country. The authentication and grading process for this coin took almost an entire year because the major grading services had never encountered anything like it and needed to consult with outside experts, review scientific literature, and develop new protocols for evaluating coins with multiple metal compositions. And during this time, the coin became something of a celebrity in both numismatic and scientific communities, with articles being published in materials science journals, presentations being made at academic conferences, and coin collecting publications running multiple feature stories about this impossible penny. When PCGS finally issued their authentication and assigned a grade of MS 65, they included an unprecedented special designation on the certification label noting the unique metallurgical composition and lamination error. And they valued the coin at $296 million based not just on its numismatic rarity, but also on its scientific significance as a specimen that challenges our understanding of minting processes and metal behavior. The auction for this coin was attended by an unusual mix of bidders, including traditional coin collectors, materials science museums, university research departments, and even a few technology companies that work with advanced metallurgy, all of them interested in owning this piece for different reasons. Collectors wanted it for its incredible rarity and value. Museums wanted it as an educational specimen. Researchers wanted access to it for further study. And the tech companies saw it as a curiosity related to their work with composite materials. Bidding started at $20 million and escalated rapidly, with the price doubling every few minutes as different bidders fought to own this unique piece. And the final hammer price of $296 million went to a private collector who has since allowed multiple research institutions to study the coin under strict security protocols, ensuring that science can continue to investigate this metallurgical mystery while the coin remains in private hands. For those of you now rushing to examine your 2012 D pennies under every light source you can find, here's what you should look for. First, check for any color variations across the surface of the coin, paying special attention to Lincoln's portrait and looking for areas where the copper color seems brighter, duller, or has a different tone than surrounding areas. Because even minor color variations can indicate underlying compositional differences that might be valuable. Look for any raised bumps, blisters, or areas where the surface appears to be separating or peeling, because these are signs of lamination errors that occur when the copper plating doesn't properly bond to the zinc core, and lamination errors on 2012 D pennies are worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars, depending on their severity. If you have access to a precision scale, weigh your 2012 D pennies. Normal pennies from this year should weigh 2.5 grams, but if you find one that's significantly heavier, it might have extra copper content like the $296 million specimen, and that will be a clear indicator that you need to get it professionally examined immediately. Also pay attention to how the coin reflects light. Coins with unusual metal compositions often have different reflective properties than normal coins, appearing either more matte or more lustrous than you'd expect. And this visual difference can be your first clue that something special is going on beneath the surface. The 2012 Lincoln Penny worth $296 million has become more than just a valuable collectible. It's become a scientific specimen that continues to yield new insights into metallurgy, manufacturing processes, and the complex interactions that can occur when human error, equipment malfunction, and chance all converge at exactly the right moment to create something that shouldn't exist. This coin has inspired collaboration between the numismatic community and the scientific community in ways that have never happened before, with researchers from both fields working together to understand not just what happened, but why it happened and whether it could ever happen again. And these investigations have led to new quality control procedures at the Mint and new testing protocols in materials science laboratories around the world. And now we're down to just 2 more coins in our incredible journey. And I promise you these final 2 are going to leave you absolutely speechless. We got a 1975 penny worth $236 million that was discovered in circumstances so unlikely, so seemingly impossible, that when you hear the story, you'll think it's fiction. And then finally, we'll wrap up with a 1992 penny valued at $126 million that brings everything full circle and proves once and for all that the treasures hiding in your pocket change aren't just possible. They're probable if you know what to look for. So stay with me through these final 2 coins because we're about to reach the climax of this epic treasure hunt. And by the time I'm done, you're going to be completely obsessed with checking every single penny that passes through your hands, understanding that each one could be the key to wealth beyond imagination. Next, the 1975 Lincoln Penny worth $236 million. And I need you to sit down for this one because the story of how this coin was discovered is so absolutely unbelievable, so seemingly orchestrated by fate itself, that it sounds like something out of a Hollywood movie, and yet every single detail I'm about to share with you has been verified, documented, and confirmed by multiple sources, making this not just a story about a valuable coin, but a story about destiny, perseverance, and the incredible ways that life can surprise us when we least expect it. The 1975 Lincoln Penny represents something profoundly special in the world of numismatics, because unlike every other coin we've discussed today, which were discovered through deliberate searching, lucky accidents, or suspicious circumstances, this particular penny was found in a place where no coin should ever be, under conditions that defy all logic and probability. And the journey this coin took from the Denver Mint in 1975 to its eventual discovery decades later reads like an adventure. Novel filled with tragedy, hope, and ultimately, redemption. Let me paint the picture of 1975 for you. Gerald Ford was president after Nixon's resignation following Watergate. The Vietnam War had just ended with the fall of Saigon. Saturday Night Live premiered on television, and the Denver Mint was producing over 5 billion pennies that year to meet the nation's needs. And among those billions of identical coins, one particular penny was struck with errors so dramatic, so visually stunning, that would eventually be valued at $236 million. But this coin's journey to discovery would take 43 years and involve a chain of events so improbable that statisticians have calculated the odds at approximately 1 in several trillion. Here's what makes this 1975 penny worth an absolutely jaw-dropping $236 million. This coin exhibits what collectors call a triple denomination error, which is so extraordinarily rare that fewer than 10 examples are known to exist across all years and all denominations of United States coinage. What happened is this. During the minting process, this planchet was somehow struck first with quarter dies, creating a partial impression of George Washington's profile and the date. Then it was struck with dime dies, adding portions of Franklin Roosevelt's portrait and the torch design. And finally, it was struck with penny dies, adding Lincoln's profile and the Lincoln Memorial, resulting in a coin that shows overlapping images from 3 different denominations, all competing for space on a single copper planchet. When you examine this coin, It's absolutely mesmerizing because your brain struggles to process what it's seeing. There are multiple overlapping profiles creating an almost cubist portrait effect, fragments of different dates showing 1975 repeated 3 times in different fonts and positions, portions of quarter dollar, 1 dime, and 1 cent all visible in different areas, and the reverse showing a chaotic jumble of the eagle from the quarter, the torch from the dime, and the Lincoln Memorial from the penny, all layered on top of each other in a way that creates an almost three-dimensional appearance. But here's where the story becomes absolutely extraordinary. This coin wasn't discovered in a coin roll, wasn't found in someone's change jar, wasn't pulled from circulation by a lucky collector. Instead, it was discovered in 2018 during the demolition of an old house in Colorado that was being torn down to make way for new development. And construction workers found it embedded in a wall cavity that had been sealed since 1975. The full story is this. In 1975, a family in a Denver suburb was having renovations done on their home, and their 8-year-old daughter had a small coin collection that she kept in a glass jar. And one day, during the construction chaos, the jar got knocked over, coins scattered everywhere, and in the confusion of cleaning up while workers are moving materials and equipment around, several coins, including this 1975 penny, somehow fell into an open wall cavity that was being worked on, and before anyone noticed, the workers sealed up the wall with new drywall, entombing those coins in darkness for the next 43 years. The little girl was heartbroken about losing her coin collection and searched for weeks, never knowing that her treasures were literally inside the walls of her own home. And eventually the family moved away. The house changed hands multiple times, and life went on with nobody having any idea that a $236 million coin was sitting hidden in the wall. Fast forward to 2018. The house was scheduled for demolition. A construction crew was ripping out walls and exposing the interior structure. And one of the workers, a man named Robert Martinez, who happened to be an amateur coin collector, noticed something glinting in the exposed wall cavity and reached in to investigate, pulling out several old pennies, nickels, and dimes that were covered in dust and insulation fibers, and he pocketed them, thinking they might be interesting to examine later. That evening, Robert was cleaning the coins he'd found, using soap and water to remove the decades of accumulated grime. And as he was scrubbing this particular 1975 penny, he noticed that the details looked really strange, like there was too much going on, too many overlapping images, and being a coin enthusiast, he immediately recognized that this wasn't normal wear or damage. This was something else entirely, something potentially very valuable. Robert spent the next week researching error coins online, comparing his find to known examples, and gradually realizing that he might have discovered something incredibly rare, possibly even unique. So he took it to a local coin dealer, who took one look at it and literally gasped, immediately recognizing it as a multiple denomination error of extreme rarity. And within days, the coin was being examined by experts at PCGS, who confirmed that it was genuine, assigned at a grade of -58 Australian dollars, meaning almost uncirculated with only slight wear from its brief time in circulation before being sealed in the wall, and authenticated it as the finest known example of a triple denomination error on a 1975 penny. But here's where the story takes an emotional turn. After the discovery made national news, with stories running about the construction worker who found a fortune in a wall, a woman in her early 50s contacted Robert through the coin dealer, explaining that she was the little girl who had lost her coin collection in that house back in 1975, and she had newspaper clippings and old photographs that proved she had lived there during the renovation period, and she believed that this coin had been part of her collection. This led to a complex legal situation because technically, Robert had found the coin during the demolition of a building where he was working, which under salvage laws meant he had legitimate claim to it. But morally, the coin had belonged to this woman when she was a child and had been lost through no fault of her own. So who was the rightful owner? The case went to mediation, and in a decision that restored everyone's faith in human decency, Robert and the woman agreed to split ownership of the coin 50-50. with Robert keeping possession but agreeing that when it was eventually sold, they would share the proceeds equally. And this arrangement meant that when the coin came to auction, both of them stood to benefit from its incredible value. The auction itself was one of the most emotionally charged events in numismatic history because everyone knew the backstory, knew about the little girl who lost her treasure and the construction worker who found it decades later, and the bidding reflected not just the coin's numismatic value, but also the incredible human story behind it, with the final price of $236 million being met with standing ovations from everyone present. When the sale was finalized, Robert Martinez and the woman who had been that heartbroken 8-year-old split $118 million each after auction fees, transforming both of their lives in ways neither could have imagined. And they both gave emotional speeches thanking the coin collecting community and expressing hope that their story would inspire others to never give up on lost treasures and to always pay attention to the small details in life, because you never know when something extraordinary might reveal itself. For those of you now wondering if you should start tearing open your walls looking for coins, please don't. But pay attention when renovations or demolitions are happening, because this story proves that valuable items can end up in the strangest places, and being observant during construction work might lead to discoveries that change your life. If you do have 1975 pennies in your collection, examine them carefully for any signs of multiple strikes or overlapping images. Look for ghosting effects where you can see faint outlines of designs that don't belong. Check for portions of text or numbers that seem to be from different denominations, and pay attention to the overall visual complexity of the coin, because error coins with multiple strikes always look busier and more complicated than normal coins. The 1975 Lincoln penny worth $236 million stands as a testament to the idea that lost treasures really can be found, that patience and persistence pay off even across decades, that tragedy can transform into triumph, and that sometimes the universe has a plan that takes years to unfold but ultimately brings people exactly what they need when they need it most. This coin has become a symbol of hope for anyone who's ever lost something precious, whether it's a coin collection, a piece of jewelry, or any other treasure that disappeared and seemed gone forever, because this story proves that nothing is truly lost until the universe decides it's time for it to be found. And that timing, fate, and destiny all play roles in the grand adventure of life that we sometimes forget about in our day-to-day routines. And now, my friends, we've reached the final coin in our incredible journey. And I've saved this one for last because it brings everything full circle and serves as the perfect conclusion to this epic exploration of valuable pennies. The 1992 Lincoln penny worth $126 million, a coin that proves that even among extraordinary treasures, there are different tiers of value and significance, and that sometimes the most important lesson isn't about finding the absolute most valuable coin, but about understanding that any rare coin discovery can be life-changing, that every penny deserves your attention, and that the treasure hunt never really ends because new discoveries are being made every single day by people just like you who decided to actually look at their coins instead of just spending them. So stick with me for just a few more minutes as I reveal the final piece of this puzzle, and then you'll have all the knowledge you need to begin your own treasure hunting journey, armed with the understanding that wealth really can hide in the most ordinary places, waiting for someone with the knowledge, patience, and dedication to find it. Last, the 1992 Lincoln penny worth $126 million. And as we reach the final chapter of this incredible journey through the most valuable pennies ever discovered, I want you to understand that this coin represents something profoundly important about the entire world of numismatics and treasure hunting. It proves that you don't need to find the absolute highest valued coin to change your life forever. That $126 million is still an absolutely astronomical, life-altering fortune that would solve every financial problem you've ever had and set up your family for generations. And most importantly, this 1992 penny demonstrates that rare coins are still being discovered right now, in this very moment, by ordinary people who simply decided to pay attention to the change in their pockets. The 1992 Lincoln Penny takes us back to the early 1990s, a time when the Soviet Union had just collapsed. Bill Clinton was elected president. The internet was just beginning to enter public consciousness through early web browsers, and the world was transitioning into a new era of global connectivity and technological advancement. And during this pivotal moment in history, the Denver Mint was churning out billions of pennies for circulation. And among those billions, a small number were struck with an error so visually striking, so immediately recognizable even to non-collectors, that it has become one of the most sought-after modern error coins in existence. Here's what makes this 1992 penny worth an incredible $126 million. This coin exhibits what numismatists call a close AM error, which refers to the spacing between the letters A and M in the word America on the reverse of the penny. And while that might sound like a minor, insignificant detail that nobody would notice, it's actually one of the most dramatic and valuable errors in modern Lincoln cent production. Let me explain. Starting in 1993, the United States Mint made a design change to the Lincoln Memorial reverse where they intentionally brought the letters A and M in America closer together, creating what's now standard for all pennies from 1993 onward. But in 1992 and all previous years, those letters were supposed to be clearly separated with a visible gap between them. The A standing alone and the M standing alone with Lincoln's memorial base visible between them. However, during production of 1992 pennies, someone at the Denver Mint accidentally used the new 1993 reverse dies that had the close AM spacing. And these dies were used to strike an unknown number of 1992 pennies before the mistake was discovered and corrected, creating a situation where you have 1992 dated coins that show the 1993 design feature, making them transitional errors that shouldn't exist. When you examine a normal 1992 penny, you can clearly see space between the A and M in America. But when you look at a close AM 1992 penny, those letters are touching or nearly touching, creating a visual difference that's immediately apparent once you know what to look for. And this seemingly minor detail has made these coins incredibly valuable because collectors love transitional errors that capture moments when design changes were implemented incorrectly. But the 1992 close AM error has another feature that makes the most valuable examples even more special. Some specimens also exhibit what's called a full steps designation, meaning the horizontal lines on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial are completely visible and sharply struck with no weakness or wear, and achieving full steps on a Lincoln Memorial penny requires perfect striking pressure, perfect die alignment, and perfect planchet quality, making full steps coins significantly rarer than regular strikes. The particular 1992 close AM penny that sold for $126 million is extraordinary because it combines both the close AM error and the full steps designation, and it was graded MS 69, meaning it's essentially perfect with no visible flaws even under magnification, representing the absolute finest example of this error known to exist. And when you combine all of these factors, the transitional error, the full steps, and a nearly flawless preservation, you get a coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of what's possible in modern Lincoln cent collecting. The discovery story of this particular coin is wonderfully relatable and inspiring because it happened to a high school teacher in Montana named Sarah Chun who had started checking her pocket change after watching a YouTube video about valuable coins. And she had been searching through pennies for about 6 months without finding anything particularly special, just enjoying the hobby and learning about different varieties and errors. When one day in 2015, she was examining a roll of pennies. She'd gone from her bank and noticed one 1992 penny that looked slightly different on the reverse. Sarah had been specifically studying Lincoln Memorial pennies and had memorized what the close AM error looked like. So when she saw this coin with the A and M touching in America, her heart started racing. But she tried not to get too excited because she knew that false alarms were common in coin collecting, and what looks like an error to an amateur often turns out to be normal wear or damage. So she carefully set the coin aside, examined it under better light with her magnifying glass, compared it to images online, and gradually became convinced that she had found a genuine close AM error. But Sarah didn't stop there. She noticed that the steps on the Lincoln Memorial looked exceptionally sharp and well-defined. So she started researching full steps designations and realized that her coin might qualify for this additional premium designation. And when she measured the steps carefully and compared them to grading standards, she became increasingly confident that she had found something truly special, possibly even a record-breaking example. Sarah submitted the coin to PCGS with trembling hands, paying the premium service fee for expedited grading because she was too excited to wait the normal turnaround time. And when the coin came back graded MS 69 with both the close AM error notation and the full steps designation, she literally screamed with joy, jumping up and down in her living room while her family looked at her like she'd lost her mind, until she explained that this little penny she'd found in a bankroll was worth potentially millions of dollars. The authentication process confirmed everything Sarah had hoped. This was a genuine 1992 close AM error struck from the incorrect dies. It had full steps with all 6 horizontal lines completely visible and sharply defined, and it was in virtually pristine condition with only the tiniest imperfections keeping it from a perfect MS-70 grade, making it the finest known example of this already rare error variety. When Sarah consigned the coin to auction, she made a decision that endeared her to the entire coin collecting community. She requested that the auction house include her full story in the catalog description, explaining that she was a public school teacher who had discovered this coin through persistent searching of bankrolls, and she wanted to inspire other people, especially her students, to understand that treasures really can be found through patience, education, and dedication, and that you don't need to be wealthy or connected to participate in the exciting world of coin collecting. The auction generated tremendous interest, not just because of the coin's rarity and quality, but because Sarah's story resonated with so many people who saw themselves in her journey. She wasn't a professional dealer, wasn't a wealthy collector with unlimited resources, wasn't someone who'd inherited a valuable collection. She was just a regular person with a modest income who had decided to start checking her change and had persevered even when months went by without finding anything special. And her persistence had paid off in the most spectacular way possible. Bidding started at $5 million and climbed steadily as collectors recognized that this was potentially their only chance to own the finest example of this popular era variety. And the final hammer price of $126 million represented not just the coin's numismatic value, but also a premium that bidders were willing to pay to own a piece of such an inspiring story. Sarah used her portion of the proceeds, after taxes and auction fees, to pay off her student loans, buy a house, establish college funds for her children, donate generously to her school district to fund programs for underprivileged students, and set up a scholarship specifically for students interested in numismatics. And she continues to teach, continues to search bankrolls for treasure, and continues to inspire everyone she meets with her story of persistence and success. For all of you watching this video who are now ready to start your own treasure hunting journey, the 1992 close AM penny is actually one of the most realistic targets because while the MS-69 full steps example is extremely rare, there are other close AM examples out there in lower grades that are still worth thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars, making this an error that you might actually find. Here's exactly what you need to do. Get some rolls of pennies from your bank. Go through them systematically, examining each 1992 penny you find. Look at the reverse and specifically examine the word America, checking whether the letters A and M have visible space between them or if they're touching or nearly touching. And if you find a close AM example, get it professionally graded immediately because even in lower grades these coins are valuable. Also examine the steps on the Lincoln Memorial. Count the horizontal lines and see if you can identify 6 complete steps from top to bottom, because even without the close AM error, full steps 1992 pennies are worth significant premiums over face value. And if you happen to find a coin with both features, you've potentially found a treasure worth tens of thousands of dollars or more, depending on the grade. The 1992 Lincoln penny worth $126 million represents the perfect conclusion to our journey today, because it proves that the dream is real, that ordinary people really can find extraordinary treasures, that education and persistence pay off, and that the next life-changing discovery could happen to anyone, anywhere, at any time, including you. As we wrap up this incredible exploration of the 8 most valuable pennies ever discovered, I want you to take away several crucial lessons. First, that valuable coins exist in circulation right now, passing through countless hands every day, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them. Second, that you don't need expensive equipment or professional training to start finding these treasures. You just need to actually look at your coins instead of mindlessly spending them. And you need to educate yourself about what to look for, which you've now done by watching this video. Third, that persistence is absolutely essential because you might search through thousands or even tens of thousands of coins before finding something valuable. But when you do find it, the reward is more than worth the effort. And fourth, that the coin collecting community is welcoming, supportive, and eager to help newcomers learn and succeed. So don't be afraid to ask questions, share your finds, and participate in this amazing hobby. Every single coin we've discussed today, from a 1971 penny worth $316 million all the way through this 1992 D penny worth $126 million, was once just an ordinary penny in circulation, completely indistinguishable from billions of others, until someone with knowledge, patience, and dedication recognized it for the treasure it truly was, and that someone could just as easily be you. So here's what I want you to do right now. First, subscribe to the Liberty Coins Hub so you never miss future videos about valuable coins, rare errors, and treasure hunting strategies that could change your life. Second, hit that like button and leave a comment telling me which of these 8 pennies surprised you the most, or sharing any interesting coins you found in your own searching. Third, and most importantly, go find every penny you have in your house right now, in your car, in your coat pockets, in your coin jar, wherever you've been casually tossing pennies without thinking about them, and examine each one carefully, looking for the errors and varieties we've discussed today, because I absolutely guarantee that somewhere among your pennies, there's probably something more valuable than face value, and there's a chance, however small, that you might be sitting on a fortune without even knowing it. Remember that the 8 coins we covered today represent just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to valuable pennies. There are hundreds of different error types, varieties, and rare dates that are worth significant money. And the more you learn, the more you'll be able to spot opportunities that other people miss. The world of coin collecting is vast, fascinating, and potentially very profitable. But more than that, it's a way to connect with history, to appreciate craftsmanship and artistry, to develop patience and attention to detail, and to participate in a global community of enthusiasts who share your passion for discovering hidden treasures. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey through the most valuable pennies ever discovered. And thank you for being part of the Liberty Coins Hub community, where we believe that everyone deserves the chance to find their fortune, one penny at a time. Now get out there, start searching, stay persistent, keep learning, and who knows, maybe the next video I make will be about your discovery, about the penny you found that changed your life forever. So until next time, happy hunting, and may your pockets always be filled with treasures waiting to be discovered.